coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of the art in blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. Reimagine 2020.
Hello, we are back with another segment in Reimagine 2020. Today we're going to be discussing reimagining blockchain consulting with student orgs from a student org perspective, and with me I have 5 other panelists.
All right, I'll go ahead and introduce myself first then. Hello everyone. My name is Ashton Barger. I am co-founder and CEO of blOX Blockchain Consulting. We co-founded it about 1.5 years ago, and so I'm still kind of working in that space. And we'll get into kind of what we've been doing as well. I'm really excited to be a part of this panel. I'm also a senior at Miami University of Ohio. I'm about to graduate in a few days, actually, virtually. That's pretty crazy. And I'm also the past president of the Miami University Blockchain Club and the social media lead of Blockchain for Social Impact Coalition. So again, happy to be here today.
Hi, my name is Anurag Koyada. I'm entering my final year at King's College London this autumn. At the King's College Blockchain Society, I'm the consulting director, as well as via the society and a little bit on my own too. I'm a venture development mentor at R3, where I work with the Corda consortium of startups looking into the fintech, more enterprise-oriented, and just largely more Corda and transaction-related blockchain operations. Excited to be part of the panel.
Hi everyone, I'm John. I'm representing Blockchain at Michigan, a completely student-run blockchain club at the University of Michigan. Last year, my role was VP of Consulting, where we were able to roll out the university's first blockchain-oriented student club consulting track. So that was pretty exciting. And now I have already graduated, so I will pass on my role to one of our next members next year.
Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Marquardt, and I'm currently a graduated senior at Michigan State University. I'm also a co-founder of Spartan Blockchain Solutions, which is a student-run nonprofit blockchain advisory firm based out of East Lansing as well. So I would say I've been involved in the blockchain, just general consulting space for probably 2 years now. And then in the fall, I'm going to be joining Accenture as a technology analyst starting in October.
And my name is Tyler Olson. I am the University Program Director at Mousebelt, also one of your co-hosts for Reimagine 2020. I really appreciate all of you guys taking some time out of your day to hop on this call with us and sort of chat a little bit about consultation and what consultation looks like in this space. So I think to sort of get us started, I wanted to ask about the general question, because my background is in academia, specifically in philosophy departments is what I've worked in for the last decade or so. So naturally, my mind goes to the question, what is consulting, right? What is consultation? Because maybe to give some context to that and why it might be puzzling is the first thing I think of, because it's the only context in which I've ever heard of it, I think of legal consultation, but from some conversations I've had with all of you off camera, it seems that that may not actually be the case. So let's start with that high level question. What is consulting, right? What are the different ways in which one can consult? And I guess with that, what do you take to be the role of the consultant?
I can start with just by saying, at least with the consultants that we have on our student club, you're really there to serve, and you're there to help. What your responsibility is as a consultant really depends on your understanding of the client's problem. And with each client, those problems could be drastically different So as it depends on what client you're working with, your main purpose as a consultant on blockchain in Michigan is to serve.
And Tyler, I think you're right that a lot of people's preconception of consulting is more legal oriented, just because that tends to be the area when compared to like business and technical side of things, that's usually the least accessible for the average business owner. But at the end of the day, I think consulting really comes down to any practice or area in which you can help someone else out in terms of it's like into mentoring or general education really. So whereas a lot of people do legal consulting in business respects, that might be helping with go-to-market strategy, for example, or helping out a business test their viability for using blockchain, helping them know, okay, this is a viable idea. Likewise, on the tech side, it might be helping wireframe their proof of concept so they're more comfortable moving into the space. It's really anything that can help bridge them to something new per se.
Yeah, so I can kind of bounce off of that. I think that was definitely a good description as well, and from both of you. And yeah, I would say a lot of consulting, like he said, is kind of legal. I've worked in kind of multiple types of consulting roles, and not all of them have been blockchain for sure. So for example, I did some marketing, some PR work to help brands kind of get off the ground and kind of just get their feet in wet in terms of marketing, social media, trying to put themselves out there so they can start to sell products. And so that's a simple type of consulting where it's really just helping a brand grow and move to the next stage. But then there's also where I've done some work in like timekeeping solutions for healthcare companies. And so that's like totally off the radar, totally different type of consulting, but it's still in the same way those are connected, and blockchain consulting is connected together too, is someone kind of just comes to you with a general problem or an inefficiency in their process or the way that they do their business, or they don't necessarily have access to a certain type of the business that they want to grow or push forward. And so that's where consulting can kind of come in and educate them and help them kind of move forward their business to the next level, whatever that may be. So it could be all different types of problems, from marketing to legal to technical to auditing. There's really multiple different types of it. But I think, where we kind of get on the same track with consulting, and then what I kind of like to focus more on is the technical side, but also the business use case side as well. But it's really just a client comes to you with a problem, and then you're able to be there every step of the way to help them through the solution.
Yeah, it's great to hear about all of your different definitions of what a consultant can be. Would love to hear about how each one of you got involved with those, with respect to the different types of consulting work that you've all done, as well as what you all are working on with respect to different consulting projects right now.
I guess I can start. So I got involved into consulting through Spartan Blockchain Solutions, actually. So we were originally an organization dedicated to really educating Michigan State University students about the values of blockchain technology and different cryptocurrencies in the space. What we quickly found was that there's already a lot of content created on what blockchain is and what cryptocurrencies are. And we were originally running out of content for how we can kind of educate a lot of our students that came to our reoccurring meetings on a weekly basis. So kind of realizing that we wanted to provide them a little more value, we switched Spartan Blockchain Solutions to more of like a consultancy, where we would look to engage organizations around like the Metro Detroit and Michigan area to kind of work with them to help them understand what blockchain is, how it's applicable to the organizations and industry, and then hopefully look to develop like a proof of concept solution for any of the single use cases that can impact that organization as well.
And sort of similarly over at King's College, we started off the same way, in that the society was, for the first few years, more of an outlet for education, in that we realized a lot of students either might know the technical side of blockchain or might think they know what the business or legal implications are, but no work is really being done in the center of all that. There's no one really talking about the overlap of things. So the blockchain society at King started off being more just, okay, how do we get the emerging tech kids and the law school students and all the business kids all in the same room, all working together? And then moving on from there, after having done events with various partners and hackathons and so forth, realized, okay, maybe it's not just students who don't really know what's happening in the future workplace. The current workplace also isn't that educated. So we found that, okay, there's a need for someone or some group of people to help people facilitate the switch into these emerging tech areas. And so being in London, which is more of a hub for the financial and legal sectors, in terms of who we reached out to first and how we got our foot out, and we ended up starting on the fintech and legal tech grounds. And over the last year, as we've got more experience, developed partnerships, which I'm sure we'll all talk about later, we ended up diversifying into other grounds. For example, we've been looking into luxury goods and e-voting recently. And so at the end of the day, I think, yeah, for most consulting clubs, they usually start off education focused before figuring out, okay, there's more people besides students who need educating.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and you really hit the nail on the head, because our situation was very similar. We started off as an educational track because the University of Michigan is very young in terms of blockchain curriculum. And then we kind of saw this void to fill with getting students experience in the industries, in this industry in particular. And so the consulting track for the blockchain at Michigan was kind of an idea that was hatched over the course of the past academic year. And through our network and people reaching out to us on our website, we were able to get involved with some startups and some larger companies who are trying to solve problems in this space.
So I guess I'll come in with a totally different story because we kind of didn't really go through the same route of being a nonprofit consultancy within our university club. So kind of how it all started, and I apologize if this goes a little long. It's kind of a crazy story. But so I was the president of the Miami University Blockchain Club. I was probably in like my first month or whatever. And we did some great work in education and workshops and professional speakers and things like that. So we already kind of had our hands full with doing a lot of that work on campus and moving off campus a little bit with some of our educational work. And so a client actually reached out to me through LinkedIn, someone who was looking for an opportunity to kind of develop his idea for this decentralized insurance architecture. It was pretty crazy to learn about because he had spent so much time and effort kind of researching the solution and creating it, but just couldn't really build the solution and actually develop it. And so that's kind of when he came to us. And kind of the way that this opportunity worked was if we kept it within the university club, we kind of saw limitations, me and our three other co-founders, limitations in terms of how we'd be able to use the money, how we could allocate different things towards it, how we're going to keep students specifically working on these solutions without being able to pay them. And so that's kind of where we thought a route of going the for-profit and creating a consultancy around it. So that's when we co-founded blOX Consulting in January of 2019 due to this client reaching out for this project. And so through that, we built it up. We hired around 8 to 10 developers, all of them actually being students. And it was a pretty crazy process to kind of go through and learn how to actually start a consultancy, start a business. It was the first time that I had obviously started a real business. So I was like, it was pretty crazy for me to learn about and try to do. I had some great co-founders with me that were really passionate about the technology and that I could see kind of going forward in the future, especially after graduation with this company. So that's kind of where we kind of went in for that. And so what we what we did was we worked for a few months kind of building this decentralized insurance platform online and through a web app. And we also were creating a mobile app a little bit, a mobile app. But through that process, we learned a lot. And then after that, it was kind of summer rolled around. So a lot of the students kind of had other priorities. And then we kind of restructured the project, went through and started working with another consultancy, actually, who was a little bit more experienced. It's probably been doing this for 5 to 10 years. And so they kind of helped more on the project management side, because it was obviously still our first time doing this. So we kind of worked with them side by side to create the vision for this entrepreneur's architecture. And so that's what we did. And we kept working on it for a few more months, and then kind of just let the project go from there. And since then, we've still been kind of restructuring a little bit, figuring out what exactly we're going to offer, the different services we're going to offer, updating social media, websites, all that stuff. And then also kind of focusing on school a little bit in the back end. So now as I'm graduating, we're actually talking to another potential client, focusing on a solution in the construction industry. So that's really exciting, and to be in works there, and to see where we can go in the future. But with that, we've mainly focused on development, specifically like Ethereum. And so a lot of what my co-founder and CTO, Jack Gilchrist, has done is smart contract development, and obviously specifically with Ethereum. So that's kind of where our specialty has been and where we've kind of done most of our work. But we're always learning new technologies, learning new processes, how to apply to different things. And then me specifically, I'm more on the business side. So I really like the use case consulting aspect. So looking into how we're going to get in that in the future as well. So kind of the broad picture of what we're working on, but we're kind of really excited to be doing just different things in the space.
Yeah, so it seems that so with consulting, on the one hand, you have, it seems like you have to have the right information, right? There's a sort of a mechanical aspect to it where you just have to have the information, and you have to actually know how to sort of guide your client. You have to sort of know the path, if you will. You have to make the right connections. You have to know how to actually get done what needs to be done, right? But then it seems like there's also an element to consulting, which is creative, in the sense that a good director or a good music producer is one who is creative. They sort of are able to see just what needs to be done at any given moment. They're sort of able to identify the problems that maybe the client didn't know they needed some direction in, right? So how does one identify if they're the consulting type? What are some of the sort of thought processes or sort of aspects to your workflow that will help you identify as a consultant? And once you've identified yourself as the consulting type, what's some advice that you could give another who's looking to get into consulting? What are some of the opportunities out there?
So in terms of how you know if you're a consultant or how you should get into it, I think there's definitely a few different ways you can approach that. What we've ended up noticing over at King's is, first, you have to really make sure you understand what blockchain is, because a lot of people think they know what it is. In reality, they might know some stuff about it. They might know the implications of blockchain, but they won't know it in depth. So first is making sure that they actually know the content, whereas they might not really. They have just like read some relevant articles about it. So that's pretty easy to do. Usually you just meet up with other people. If you try having an in-depth conversation about blockchain and its implications or use cases with someone else who's actually knowledgeable, you'll know within 20 minutes if you're just rehearsing the same lines over and over, actually know it. As far as actually getting into consulting, I think the mindset is definitely one more of just a history of innovation. Like a lot of our consultants either come from backgrounds where they're very competitive and that they're always trying to find new ways to do things, or just find the best parts of things. And on the technical side, a lot of it is people who have been in a lot of hackathons, etc. Because one of the biggest parts of blockchain use cases that we've been seeing that's overlooked is that a lot of people have innovative ideas for what blockchain could do in industries. A lot of people overlook, for example, how it has to be integrated with legacy technology and with all the existing infrastructure that's out there. So it's very much, like you said, a matter of thinking differently, but also making connections of things that people don't overlook or people don't think about. Because at the end of the day, whenever a client comes up to us and asks for help on developing a new solution, if it doesn't work for even a reason that isn't something they came to us about, it still looks negative on our part. So we have to be proactive and guide them to figure out what the problems are that even they might not know about.
Yeah, I can kind of piggyback off that a little bit, I guess. So the way that I kind of figured out that I was more of the consultant type, just in general, I am someone who doesn't necessarily like get super focused on one thing. I kind of have a bit of ADHD, so I'm a little all over the place in terms of how I'm able to focus on certain things. But I really like to learn a lot of new things in different categories. There hasn't really been one key industry that's really piqued my interest or piqued my eye, and I kind of like learning about specifically the blockchain applications in multiple industries, and that's where blockchain really piqued my interest and how I really knew that I was interested in blockchain consulting specifically. But I would say I'm more of a generalist in terms of I don't necessarily put myself in as an expert in like one industry or one specific piece. It's more of I like to learn about all different things and do different types of work, because when you're in a consulting role and when you're offering services to clients you don't know that are your clients yet, you don't know what kind of problems they're going to come to you with. You don't really know what exactly is going to come to you, and it's not going to be the same run-of-the-mill solution every time. It's not going to be the same playbook every time. You kind of got to think on your feet, do different things, and so that's what I really enjoy about it is knowing that my next project might not be the same as the one that just came before it. So that's kind of how I think of what a consultant might be, but also someone who's just interested or gotten a lot of experience in problem solving, because that's a really big piece of it as well.
So your ADHD and coping with the sort of indeterminacy of the thing that's gonna distract you next has actually helped you in a consultation, because in the world of consulting, you don't know what's going to happen next with your clients or what kind of client's going to come at you next. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also in terms of like an entrepreneurial mindset too, I think that's a piece of it is really not being afraid to fail, or like when you're creating a solution, things are going to go wrong, in a test environment, things might go way off the rails. So being ready to cope with that and kind of understand what went wrong and push forward to the next piece of it is also an important part. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you all are involved in some interesting consulting projects currently, and yeah, it looks like you guys are serving a lot of the needs in your region. So going forward, how do you all think the trends of consulting will sort of change, and how will this sort of reshape the industry? Will we see a lot of large existing consultancy groups that are not especially in blockchain sort of want more exposure, or will we sort of see the rise of smaller groups? What do you all think about that?
I would say first in the short term, I see significantly large like consulting or professional services organizations really start to offer blockchain as a service as one of their core offerings. Just because number one, they have the personnel to again work with legacy systems and implement like a blockchain based solution into current organizations. But also just going forward, the ability to work with some of like their innovation labs, or even like collaborate with other large tech organizations, and look to like develop the blockchain space further, whether that be from developing like new governance models, or just developing new partnerships specifically with like large industry players.
One thing I would like to see as a future software developer is the kind of maturation of software development tools. One of our clients, Fortmatic, works on web apps and SDKs. It was very interesting to see what kinds of problems that the students were trying to solve, but there were also a lot of pain points with some of their development tools that they were using, just because it's so early and they're still testing and rolling out new versions and just trying to perfect some of the processes that could be optimized.
I think something that I am interested in and excited about for the future is the kind of development of consortiums and the coming together of multiple parties to create industry standards. I think it's still obviously a need in the blockchain space. A few consortiums that come to my mind that are doing really great work is MOBI, for example, so Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative. We actually had a panel with them at our virtual blockchain conference a few weeks ago, and something that they talked about, and something that some other consortiums have kind of just mentioned, and the work they're doing is really getting these different industry players that know that they have a problem and that they know the blockchain is going to help them with efficiency, trying to develop that and understand, okay, what's going to be the best solution moving forward, but then how do we kind of standardize that as an industry in terms of, if I go and try to work with this partner here, how do I know that this is going to integrate into their solution on this side? It's really coming together and making sure that all throughout the process, like the steps, the processes are interconnected in terms of one solution, one software, and not going to go from here to there to there. They're using this blockchain solution. I'm going to go plug my data into this blockchain solution. I think it's a lot of coming together and brainstorming, but also starting to develop as a consortium the industry standards that are needed. So I think like MOBI is a good example of that, and something that I'm excited to work on in the future, along with Andrew and a few others at different universities, is a consortium of people across campuses. So getting kind of some consulting opportunities there where we can kind of start to do things virtually or do things for clients that aren't necessarily right in front of you, but also just to give students more experience. I think that's pretty exciting. But so that's another trend on the other side of what we're kind of looking forward to, and that's the Midwest Blockchain Consortium, if you guys were wondering what the name of that was.
And yeah, same here in terms of the rise of consortiums. So through a lot of our work with R3 and some other consortiums more in the financial and legal side of things, I agree a lot of the biggest pushes right now have been in terms of legislation standardization across industries. So for example, one of the clients we're working with is a startup in Latin America. And so with them, a lot of the blockchain work comes down to just helping the government figure out, okay, what are the values of blockchain and how can we implement this in as many ways as possible if it is something that we think is useful. And so right now, the things we're working with them are literally anything from supply chain in terms of crowd management with social distancing measures with the Ministry of Health, to anything to right now we're helping their central bank looking into central bank digital currencies. So at the point where a lot of people are finally realizing the inherent values of blockchain, it just comes down to now that last hurdle of figuring out, is it viable to do? And more importantly, is it viable to do now? And as far as what I think is going to be most impactful for student consulting with blockchain is two big things. So one, seeing as how blockchain is finally being more commercially accepted, there's a big push to see how it's used more in respect to the millennial population than the younger populations. So for example, with the rise of interest in, for example, green investing or everything environmentally related, a lot of people are saying, okay, this is actually a pretty viable case for blockchain. For example, if you want to verify a company's electricity usage, you can do that on the blockchain. And so blockchain is really able to increase transparency and increase different demographics access to information. And right now that happens to be helping out companies more communicate with younger populations. That's something that I'm excited to try to get involved with, to see how we can see how a generation of 20 to 30-year-olds can influence industries that have been operating for literally decades, if not centuries, and see how finally blockchain might be able to rework some of those internal mechanics.
Well, it's good to know that there's a lot of young, interested people out there willing to consult people that are trying to build out this industry. And I think the fact that this is such a new industry that is growing at a rapid pace, there's a case to be made for a high demand of consultancy, right? So hopefully anybody that was tuning into this panel through the testimony of our 4 panelists here, Ashton, Anurag, Jonathan, Andrew, and some of their insights with respect to what opportunities are out there and how you might be able to identify yourself as the consulting type. Hopefully that serves you a helping hand in some way, because Lord knows we're going to need it going forward. Thanks again, guys, for joining us on this call today and chatting a little bit about consultancy. As always, feel free to reach out to us at Mousebelt anytime. And I wish you the best for the rest of 2020. Take care. You're tuned in to Reimagine 2020. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of the art in blockchain education and technological development all around the world. Reimagine 2020.